Welcome. I'm Dave Teleposki, and you're listening to On Point Cast. We can be heard on SoundCloud, and you can follow us on all the major social media platforms by searching On Point Cast and by visiting www.onpointcast.com. Episode 2 of the podcast has me and Andy interviewing Larry Cooney Jr. Larry is the lead singer for the band Elements DEC, which was a New Jersey-based hardcore metal hip-hop band. The band recorded 2 demos, one from famed New Jersey studio Tracks East. Although they never achieved mass popularity, the lyricism and quality hooks and groove allowed the band's music to hold up years after the band played their last show. We hope you enjoy the interview and some clips of some of the band's music, and feel free to check out the lyrics shared and corrected for me by Larry himself at www.onpointcast.com. We're here with Larry from Elements DEC, and you're listening to On Point Cast, onpointcast.com. Follow us at onpointcast. Anyway, our first question, we have Andy Teleposki here also, and he's gonna start us off here with the first question for Larry from Elements.
All right, when did Elements DEC start, and who were the band members?
Let's see. First off, thanks for having me. Nice to meet you guys on the phone, even though Dave, we've met in the past, actually. So I guess we started in around 1992, 93-ish.
It's funny because it's like we're like trying to go way back here, and like it's weird. It seems like a long time ago, but yet it doesn't at the same time.
Yeah, maybe to you. To me, it definitely kind of seems like a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying, because I think the music still kind of holds up, and it's still kind of relevant, but maybe we'll get to that in another segment.
Yeah.
But it was like around 92, 93. I actually knew Raj and John since second grade.
Okay.
We all lived in Elizabeth, New Jersey. So I had known those guys forever. I moved away from Elizabeth in 8th grade, and I met a kid named Scott. Turns out he wound up being the guitarist for Elements after he was in a little band called Lifetime. Me and Scott basically became best friends when I moved out to Denellen, New Jersey from Elizabeth. So about 92, 93-ish, we were all just kind of hanging out. And funny enough, we were kind of already disenchanted with the hardcore scene.
Yeah.
And we were at a show, and we were kind of talking a little smack at the show, like, there's no good bands anymore. Like, we were already the old guys of the hardcore scene, even though we were only like around 20.
Yeah.
And a good friend was like, if you guys think there's no good bands, why don't you do something about it? And we were kind of like, yeah, why don't we do something about it? We had all done bands before. Me and Scott did a band, our first band when we were like 12. So we had all kind of done bands, off and on. But this was the first time the friends from my childhood and my new friends from my teen years kind of came together. And that's how Elements started. Funny enough, the original name of the band was Cool Out Breed. We went by that name for about a year.
Wait, was what? Say it again. Cool out what?
Cool Out Breed. It's
Breed.
Actually based on a line from A Tribe Called Quest.
Okay, yeah.
Q-Tip said, join in the essence of the Cool Out Breed. So that kind of set the stage. Choosing that name, we eventually, dropped that name because I thought we all kind of agreed it was a little too hokey, I guess is the best way to put it.
Okay.
But, there was some, when we first started, we were basically a Leeway clone. Like, that's the best way I could put it. We all loved Leeway, and we kind of thought we could do our version of Leeway. The only thing about that was I couldn't really sing. And most of the first songs that we wrote, they were me trying to attempt to sound like Eddie and doing a really bad job at it. So I think because we kind of realized that first direction of the band wasn't really going to be what we thought it was going to be, we kind of decided to start from scratch and come up with a new name and all that. So Elements probably was close to 93, maybe even 94, but I'm going to say 93.
Okay, so you mentioned, I'll be honest,
I'm sure, like, at different points we've, like, crossed paths between, like, your band members and stuff, but I don't really know the guys in your band. But you mentioned Scott, so he was actually in Lifetime?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like I said, when I moved out to Denellen, New Jersey, my cousin at the time lived in town, and at the time I was already a hardcore kid listening to punk rock and hip-hop, and I skateboarded. And I moved to a pretty small suburban town where there was almost no one that did any of that. There was literally one kid in town, and my cousin was like, yeah, I hate to break it to you, there's probably only one guy that you're going to get along with in town here, and his name is Scott. He was like, he happens to live like 2 blocks away from me. I'm friends with him. I'll let him know that you're moving here, and I'll introduce the setup. And that's literally how I met Scott. So I knew Scott before he was even in Lifetime. Me and him were basically like the outcasts of town, so we became close pretty quick. And like I said, me and him did a band probably within like 6 months of me moving to Denellen. We started our first band. It was called Stand Strong, which then turned into Out of Hand. I mean, we always kind of played with music because being an outcast that no one really got along with, there's a lot of free time, and what else do, kids that listen to hardcore do but start a band?
Yeah.
We're going to get into a track right now. The name of this track is Hesitation is the Enemy, and you're listening to an interview with Larry from Elements DEC on Point Cast.
Paradise or prison, it's all in your mind and your inner vision. There is no such thing as a solution, just a substitution in this world of confusion. A fascination with degradation, but it's all a fabrication. Take the nation, communication, non-gratification. Some relations is done, a creation of devastation, meant for relation, innovation, number. Education with regulations, classifications and subordination. Frustrations with designations of realization, no time for contemplation. Frustration with designations of realization, no time for contemplation. Hesitation is the enemy. Hesitation is the enemy. Hesitation, the enemy. Hesitation is the enemy. You can be in paradise or prison. It's all in your mind and your inner vision. There is no such thing as a solution, just a substitution in this world. A fascination with degradation, but it's all a fabrication. Check the nation, communication, non-gratification. Some relations is done, a creation of devastation, meant for relation, innovation, number. Education with regulation, classifications and subordination. Frustration with designations of realization, no time for contemplation. Frustration with designations of realization, no time for contemplation. Hesitation is the enemy. Hesitation is the enemy. Hesitation, the enemy. Hesitation is the enemy. You can be in paradise or prison. It's all in your mind and your inner vision. There is no such thing as a solution, just a substitution in this world. Be aware we're almost there. Stop but don't stare, feel but don't care. Don't even dare to speak. Turn the other cheek, stay weak. Be aware we're almost there. Stop but don't stare, feel but don't care. Don't even dare to speak. Turn the other cheek, stay weak. Stop but don't stare, feel but don't care. Turn the other cheek, stay weak.
We're back. You're listening to On Point Cast. And again, that was the name of that track was called Hesitation is the Enemy. And we're going to go back to our interview with Larry from Elements DEC.
How did you guys end up recording with Steve Evans and Tracks East?
That's a pretty good question.
Yeah, because when you look at your,
actually kind of
you look at your demo, I mean,
ahead.
when you see like the liner notes in your demo, I mean, I have to say, I mean, you know, it's quite obvious. I mean, they're two demos, but I mean, the sound quality is like awesome, and I mean, it's, you know, holds up till today, like I said.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Believe it or not, us recording at Track Z happened totally by chance. We actually had time booked at another studio. I don't even remember the name. I couldn't remember the name if you forced me to.
Yeah.
All I remember is that it was by Lake Hopatcong, New Jersey.
Okay.
We had time booked at that studio, and the guy basically called us the night before. We had all our equipment packed up already. We were ready to go the next day. The guy called us the night before and said, sorry, I have kidney stones. I'm going to have to bail.
Really?
So we're like, oh, okay. So the next, we were basically without a studio for a while, but we had all this cash, and we really wanted to go somewhere pretty good. And I think it was our drummer, Raj. He was like, yeah, you know, I know this place, Tracks East. I think at the time they had already maybe recorded Skid Row, I want to say. Like, I just know we wanted to go to a good studio. We actually saved up the money to do that. So I think we just literally cold called them and booked time, and we just happened to get Steve.
Wow.
And that wound up being like such a blessing, because he was really so incredibly into us helping get the sound that we wanted to get. And he's also a bass player, and I still think to this day one of the things that set Elements apart was our bass player, John.
Yeah.
He's one of the best bass players I've ever known. Probably, the kid could play any genre of bass and kill it. He's just amazing. So him and Steve literally clicked right away, because Steve was like, man, this is good. So it was really cool. Even though we were only there, I think, 3 days total, like, Steve was really into helping us get our sound, and it was just a great experience, and we couldn't have been more happy with the way that came out. And I think the sound of that demo really helped people kind of gravitate towards it, too. Like, yeah. I think, don't get me wrong, I think the music was pretty good on its own, but it kind of sounded a lot more professional than your typical hardcore demo, you know?
Yeah. did you press CDs, or did you guys just put out demo tapes, or?
We actually pressed a couple of CDs. I shouldn't say a couple. I think about 50.
Okay.
We also put out tapes. I mean, we were never really super official with things. It was more just like if we played a show, we had a couple tapes for people. At that time, we also did start to we had our first manager.
Okay.
And you can't see me, but I'm putting that in air quotes.
Okay.
It was basically just a friend that liked us, and he was like, so, Jim used to use the CDs and stuff. I think he would send them out to clubs and stuff like that to try to book us shows and stuff. So we never, unfortunately, we never had any official release of anything we did. We just kind of, if we had a couple CDs or tapes at shows, we would sell them. Otherwise, we just kind of gave them out as necessary. So, there's some floating around out there. I actually just got a copy of the second demo myself on cassette. I never had one. Turned out a friend of mine had one, and he was like, here, man, I know this is your band. If you want it, here. So I literally just got that like a year ago. So there weren't that many copies floating of either of our demo.
Yeah, because I have to admit, because when I was on WSOU, somehow I don't even know how we got a copy of your CD that had all your both demos on it, and I just remember even people at WSOU were like, man, who's that band? They sound pretty hot. It was just like at the time, like I said, everything kind of clicked into place. I kind of just felt bad that like we played you guys, like I said, on Hardcore Reality, but I guess people never really knew you guys or knew who you were, or like knew much about the band.
Yeah, it was kind of like a catch-22 because, and I wanted to say thank you for that, because you guys, you did play us on Hardcore Reality a decent amount too. Like I remember you at one point you even used like the intro of Win or Lose to talk over and stuff. Like we were psyched, like
yes.
In our minds we were like, yeah, we kind of made it, because we all grew up listening to that and stuff. We all used to be metalheads.
Oh yeah.
So it was like it was great because we were now on the radio. Our band was on the radio. That's what we wanted. But not a lot of people knew that we were the band on the radio. Like I think on one flyer we did, we even put like of SOU's Hardcore Reality to get people to come out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like we did our best to kind of push that on our own, and it definitely helped at some point. It's funny you say you don't know how you got the CD. I think that was probably our manager Jim. Looking back on things, like he did really try his hardest to mail those CDs out to as many people as possible.
Yeah.
So it's probably him.
All right, so we're going to get into another track right now. The name of this track is called Braille. And again, you're listening to an interview with Larry from Elements DEC on Point Cast.
Who's to say that today is given the way today's society is living? Temperature has risen, now conditions ain't quite how they were vision. We're the voice of tomorrow, and all we painted pictures of sorrow for the mass to swallow and follow. But what is a mass if it's hollow? Stop and think in a blink, the break could come up. What was once known as one could now be none. We risk it all, but the more we get take, the future's ours to shape. Who's to say that today is given? The way today's society is living. Temperature has risen, now conditions ain't quite how they were vision. We're the voice of tomorrow, and all we paint is pictures of sorrow for the mass to swallow and follow. But what is a mass if it's hollow? Stop and think in a blink, the break could come up. What was once known as one could now be none. We risk it all, but the more we can take, the future's out to shape, miss or make. Now the seeds feed the cream for the so-called dream. but fail to understand it's a plan of the man. Can't comprehend who is friend and who is foe. They just go with the flow, act like they know. They just go with the flow, act like they know. They just go with the flow, act like they know. They just go with the flow, act like they know.
What bands did you play with, and where did you guys play shows?
We played with the Cro-Mags at Studio One.
Oh, wow.
We played with Marauder at Wetlands. We played with
Nice.
Leeway at a place called The Wave in Staten Island.
Oh, wow.
We played with Train of Thought multiple times, at least 3 or 4 times, because they were pretty much our boys. And that was all over Jersey, you know. We played with Candiri, I believe, up at some like church, or like it was a crazy venue up in North Jersey, I remember.
Yeah.
We played with a decent amount of people. We also did. See, I'm naming all hardcore shows because, you know, we kind of grew up in the hardcore scene, but we played a lot of metal-leaning shows, too, and that was kind of on purpose. Like, even though we were hardcore kids at the time, most of us, I'll say most of us, because Scott was more from the punk rock side of things.
Yeah.
But most of us were metalheads to begin with. That's how we got introduced to hardcore. So we definitely felt that Elements had a really big tinge of metal to it. You know, we wanted to kind of represent the fact that we were metalheads now listening to hardcore, trying to do this kind of hip-hop infused style, right?
Right.
So we purposely said, let's try to get out of just playing hardcore shows and play all types of shows. So we did like a battle of the bands down in Tom's River, and we were like the only heavy act. We played, like I said, just crazy little metal shows. We played at Birch Hill, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we played a decent amount of shows, but we didn't play enough. And I think that was one of the big problems. Like, I could get into why if you want to, but we kind of thought things might come to us instead of going out and getting them.
Yeah.
And that was the big problem with the band.
Did you ever travel outside of New Jersey to play any shows?
Just Staten Island and New York City. That was literally it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
again, it kind of gets back to what I was saying. Like, we just didn't play enough shows. And, you know, hindsight is 20/20. But even at the time, it was kind of a thing between us. Like, you know, some of us were saying that we need to play more shows. Some of us say, no, we need to be picky about what shows we play. Like, it was a whole discussion that never really got resolved. And, you know, looking back, I think if we played a lot more shows, things might have turned out slightly different. Who knows? You can't really say, but I wish we played more shows. That's definitely one of my bigger regrets with the band.
well, I was gonna say, I mean, you know, bands that I've interviewed over the years, I mean, like, you know, a lot of them get burnt out though too. I mean,
and then, you know, there was definitely that, especially towards the end. There was a big hint of getting burnt out. I mean, all in all, you know, if you include like the whole Cool Out Breed days that I mentioned, we were a band for about 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty long time in the grand scheme of things, especially, you know, in that hardcore scene. And so, yeah, you know, definitely towards the end, not even towards the end, I'd say towards the middle of things, we started kind of getting burnt out. And again, a lot of that was what I would like to call self-imposed. You know, we had this crazy delusion that we could potentially blow up. That's the term that we always use. We could blow up. We could blow up.
Yeah.
And we kind of pursued things in that direction instead of organically laying the roots so it would happen naturally.
Yeah.
We tried to cut corners, I would say, is the best. best way to put it. And what's crazy is it almost happened, and a lot of people don't know that. Like, we had a showcase show for Bad Boy Records, which was Puff Daddy's record label. They were looking to sign a heavier act at the time, so we actually made it to a showcase show for them. Obviously, it didn't work out because, we were not signed to Bad Boy Records, but at that point we had different management too. There was a hip hop DJ called Chuck Chillout. He was pretty famous in the hip hop world. Somehow, I think it was Raj in our band. He knew him or knew people that knew him. So Chuck came to a couple of our practices. He kind of liked what we were doing, so he set us up with management that he knew, and they had really only represented hip-hop and R&B acts, so we were the first heavy act that they took on. So that's when things also got a little weird as well, if I'm going to be honest, because they kind of had an idea of how we should present ourselves to the world instead of us presenting ourselves just as ourselves. So maybe I'm getting a little too deep here, but there was things going on behind the scenes as to why more people didn't know us as well. There was a lot of, I don't want to say strife because we were pretty happy, the entire time, but there was a lot of, I don't know the right word for it, but there was a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on that caused us to not play out as much either.
What are some of your thoughts on the ways the New Jersey music scene has changed from back when you guys started to today?
That's an interesting question. I still pretty much consider myself part of the scene, even though I'm nowhere near as active.
Right.
So in some ways, from my perspective, it hasn't changed much because it seems like it's still the same people I knew from back then are part of it.
Right.
But that also, I think that also lends itself to the fact that I am now the old man in the scene, and there's a scene of whole younger kids doing things, that I'm not necessarily a part of that.
Were you guys ever part of like the New Brunswick scene? Like, did you guys play basement shows or play any shows in New Brunswick?
We played the Plum Street Pub a couple times. We played the Melody like 4 or 5 times. So yeah, we never played a basement show at Brunswick, but me and Scott, Scott definitely was known as part of the Brunswick scene.
Yeah.
We only lived like 10, 15 minutes away from New Brunswick, so we were there quite a lot. So we knew most of the people in the Brunswick scene. Here's kind of the interesting thing, though. Like, the hardcore scene didn't necessarily embrace us, even though we were hardcore kids.
Yeah.
And in a way, we kind of deserved it, because like I said, we kind of thought we didn't necessarily want to play shows in the hardcore scene because we thought we were something other than hardcore.
Right.
So, I know for a fact people thought that we turned our back on the scene because I heard it. I heard it from people. And so that kind of also created this weird thing between us and the scene itself. Even though we were still friends with people and still cool with people, there was a little bit of rumbling that, they think they're better than the hardcore scene.
You know what I was gonna say? Because like the scene itself, like, you had your like punk type style bands, then you had your like, the metal type bands started really coming through, and then like, it was almost like the style that you guys played, which, sounded awesome to me, I'm sure to a lot of people. I guess like there's like this kind of animosity slightly towards like the hip hop style. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, especially, and that was the funny thing. Like I said, we kind of wanted to focus on the metal side of things. But the metal crowd, they were like, oh, these guys, what is this? What is this, like, infusion? Why are they playing what kind of sounds like hip hop,
Right.
So we kind of got pushed back from that scene. And yeah, the hardcore scene, even back then, like, even though, KRS was on Sick of It All's album by that point, like, there was still this, like, weird thing, like, people keeping it real. You can't listen to hip-hop and hardcore, when to us, they were literally one and the same. They were both musics from the street, and the voice of a downtrodden person. So, like, it was just kind of weird. Like, we definitely did catch pushback for that. And here was the thing, like, even though I do think if you listen to us, you could say, yes, hip-hop, you know, these guys were clearly influenced by hip-hop, I never thought we were blatant with it. Like bands that came to follow. Yeah, we did one song that was very blatant, and there's actually a story behind why we did that. But all of our other songs, like, even though we were influenced by hip-hop, like, I don't think you could say, like, people could say, oh, this is clearly influenced by hip-hop. You know what I mean? Like, I think the groove of hip-hop was there, but it was still heavy music.
Right.
But yeah, we got pushed back from both scenes, kind of, which I don't think didn't help. Like, I don't want to say we were a little too early with our style, but I kind of think we were a little too early with our style.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's not me trying to pat ourselves on the back or whatever. Like, we didn't invent the genre. But, you know, I do think we were slightly early to that kind of style of music because just a couple years later it blew up, you know?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was going to say, I think people were probably hating on your demos because, you know, they sounded so slick. I mean.
Yeah, and that's another thing, too. You know, we definitely heard that. Oh, well, they're not hardcore. Did you hear the production? You know, and meanwhile to us, we were like, this is our dream. Like, this sounds great. And again, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we were metalheads that got into hardcore. So we loved great production, you know what I mean, to us.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the reason I got into hardcore was I loved the rawness of it, and I loved the feel of it. So, you know, and it was always kind of a discussion within the band, too. Are we too slick? Are we too polished? Like, that's why, like, the production aside from the two demos, I do think the second demo goes a little bit more to that raw, to that, you know, sound that I'm discussing.
Yeah.
Now, you know, one could argue, and I'll agree, the production on the second demo isn't the best, especially since you're comparing it to the Tracks East demo. It wasn't going to be because it wasn't Tracks East. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But we did want to get a heavier sound out of that second demo because we wanted to keep it a little more raw, too.
Yeah. Well, you know, I have to say, too, I mean, and it's funny because, I mean, people who are listening right now, when you probably got a little kick out of, I tried to actually transcribe all your lyrics. And
you did a pretty good job.
Some of them were like kind of amusing in a way. And I don't know, you actually corrected them for me, but I have to say, like, you know, like the lyrics are like real, like clever. There's like, you know, cool like hooks to them, and like, I mean, you put that all together with the production of the recording and everything. I mean, and it, like I said, when I say it holds up, you know, it holds up.
Toss across the dust as hate takes its place. I tend to care, unaware of pain meant to take. Hypnotized by lies, disguised in your eyes. The more time passes by, the more I deny. Taste the pain of life in, I put the door in stay. Listen, ignorance, but now I'm away, so the lies are easy to break. Taste the pain of life in, I put the door in stay. Listen, ignorance, but now I'm away, so the lies are easy to break. Love's design is fine, two minds intertwine. What threads that are woven, too loose they can be broken. Love's design is fine.
if you want to say anything, but is there anything about any of the songs specifically that you'd want to talk about? Like anything like that stands out to you? Like,
yeah, sure.
Like a reason why you wrote a certain
definitely.
song, or like the way you wrote the lyrics, why you wrote them that way, or...
Yeah, so I could get into the why first, and I think it's kind of important. I think I alluded to it earlier on. It was kind of decided pretty early on that I didn't have a singing voice, right? Even though the band initially wanted someone that could sing.
Yeah.
So my voice was kind of always in question, even from my fellow bandmates, right? And it was cool because we were friends. Everyone was just honest with each other. Like, initially, they wanted an Eddie-type sounding vocalist. I gave that my best shot, and it was awful. But we kind of sat down and said, okay, I can't sing like Eddie, but what can I do? And a big part of the story I should add is, prior to being part of Elements, I actually rhymed with some kid when I went to school in New York City. I went to Parsons in New York for art.
Yeah.
I met a kid there from California. His name was Leo. He went by Q. And me and him, we formed a group together of just straight rhyming, like hip-hop rhyming. And that lasted about 2.5 years, and that was before Elements.
Yeah.
So right when the whole rhyming thing stopped with Leo, that's when Elements started. And like I said, we wanted to do kind of like a leeway type thing first. I clearly couldn't do that, even though I tried. I would have loved to. Like, if I could have sang, we would have probably pursued that style. But the truth was I couldn't. So the lyrics wound up being an intentional part of my lack of being able to sing. And what I mean by that was I knew I couldn't really sing like an Eddie or whatever, or, you know, any metal singer out there. So I knew that I really had to bring it with the lyrics. And the other thing was, like, growing up for me, the lyrics were everything. Like, you know, I was the kid that sat there with the cassette tape and opened up the liner and played it and read the lyrics along with the song, you know, 24 hours a day. That was me. Like, lyrics meant everything. So because I knew I really couldn't sing that well and I had a pretty unique voice, but I also wanted to do these rhymes, I really intentionally thought to myself, I really have to bring it with the lyrics. Because especially since I really appreciated the fact that I had this great band behind me. Like, again, you know, I do think the lyrics are part of what made us Elements, but I can't understate the fact that our bass and the bass player and our drummer, they were fantastic. We had great guitar players, you know, so there was a really good foundation musically. So those guys also forced me to step up my lyrics. So really the lyrics were just a result of wanting to bring it and wanting to say something important. Like, you know, I grew up really liking Black Flag as an example, because they had something to say. You know, so I just really wanted to say something with my lyrics, and most of them I feel like I ultimately achieved that. So, you know, you said maybe we could go song by song or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, the simplest way to put it is most of my lyrics were about my observations on society at the time.
Yeah.
And to get a little more specific, they were kind of me, they were all kind of warnings from me saying, if we continue down this path, this is kind of where I imagine things to be.
Right.
So that's why I think, ironically, everything's still relevant now, because unfortunately, a lot of the stuff I was talking about as like precautionary has kind of come true in all regards. Like, it's kind of scary how accurate the lyrics were. Like, and believe me, it was, you know, my one the bass player, John, we still see each other now and then, and he made a joke. I used to go by the name Ties. That was my rhyming name, Ties MC. And he made a joke like 3 years ago. He called me Tiestradamus after Nostradamus, because he was just like, son, all your lyrics basically came true. And I was like, yeah, believe me, that wasn't intentional. It was just completely, you know, luck. But, you know, in a way, maybe it wasn't, because I was just always, I was a pretty observant person. I was an only child, so I did a lot of observing.
Yeah.
I just saw what was going on. So most of the lyrics, like The Game Ain't the Same, Win or Lose, Hesitation is the Enemy, Transmissions, those are just all my takes on society. They're all pretty bleak takes, you know, that I just didn't see a very positive outlook for society. they all primarily come down to, I thought people were too self-assessed. They only cared about themselves, and it was all about what they could do to make their life better, and not everyone on a whole is better, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, I also felt that the system that had been set up was done so in a way to keep the 99% down, so to speak, and to let the 1% kind of run everything. So a lot of those lyrics are kind of Orwellian in nature, I would say. Like, one of my favorite books growing up was 1984. It was kind of just me, like, trying to predict what I thought was going on with society. And, like, again, to me, punk rock was always kind of about being political. And even though we were doing this new type of style, I still wanted it to be punk rock at heart, So that's where most of the lyrics come from. Like a song like Dust, I actually wrote that in 11th grade after a big breakup with a girl. Like, the lyrics to Dust were super old. I actually wrote the riff to Dust, too. Like, Dust was a song I wrote in 11th grade. So, like, we kind of just pulled that out of nowhere. Fugue, just kind of wrote the lyrics on the spot. I remember hearing that term, fugue, and just thinking it was cool. So wrote the song about that, and I'm trying blanking it. And like I said, What You Know, that song was literally just rhymes that I had from the top. That we kind of, we had one more song, we had time to record one more song when we were in that studio. We didn't really know what to record. We played that riff here and there at rehearsal. Like, we kind of had the basics of a song, but I really didn't have any lyrics. So we literally wrote that song at the studio when we recorded it. So it was really just rhymes that I had written previously that happened to fit over the song. And like I said, that was kind of our direct response to people saying, oh, they're just metal, hardcore rap or whatever, metalcore, whatever. People, like you said, and we were talking about, people kind of used to make fun of the fact that we had a hip-hop sound to us. So that song was kind of our way of saying, if we really had a hip-hop sound to us, this is what it would sound like. Like, it was kind of an inside joke to us, that song. Like, don't get me wrong, we were proud of the song. But to us, if we were really playing heavy music that was clearly inspired by hip-hop, it would have all sounded like that, but it really didn't. That was kind of our way of saying, if we chose to do just this, it would sound like this. And funny enough, that's the song, like I said, we wound up getting a showcase for Bad Boy Records and all that. That's the song, of course, that the guy that found us, he loved and thought that it could be our first single and all that. And again, we were just like, oh, I'm not really sure about that, because we're not sure if this is the sound we want to pursue.
What you know? This that type of beat, you take a seat. Sit back and relax, twist up, wait for the contact and get bumped. The heads around my way know what's up. Dying for the day that we play, all you ducks. Half you crew suck, the other half we show love. Every day, all day, come around my way. We do our best to deal with stress, even though it's here to stay. Every day, all day, come around my way. We do our best to deal with stress, even though it's here to stay. So what you know about the click that's up like Gillette? We known as E-Deck. Connect with intellect, collect and check rent. Protecting that. The best bet, step, get off the set. Prepare for introspect. Connect with intellect, collect the check and wreck. Mad respect. Mad respect. Feel the stress, get possessed with nervousness. We are blessed with next consciousness. Manifest my style, agile, but wild, no profile. Ain't no smile on the grill that slept on my skills. I kill any talk that me not representing. Did I mention we be dirty? Our section, New Jersey. Every day, all day, come around my way. We do our best to deal with stress, even though it's here to stay. Every day, all day, come around my way. We do our best to deal with stress, even though it's here to stay. So what you know about the click that's up like Gillette? We know that E-Deck. Connect with intellect, collect and check, friend. Protecting that. Your best bet, step, get off the set. Prepare for introspect, connect with intellect, collect and check, wreck. Mad respect.
One of the things I also tried to do was write lyrics that could be interpreted different ways by different people.
Yes, yes.
You know, and that's not always easy. Like, I know exactly what the lyrics meant to me, but it was always kind of interesting to hear other people's takes on it. Sometimes they were right, sometimes they were completely off, but it made them think of something. So, you know, that was really just my overall goal with the lyrics. Like, I knew what I wanted to say, but I really just wanted to get people to think, even if it was just for that song. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's really what I could say about the lyrics. You know, one story I'd like to share, because it did impact me earlier on. You know, we had a couple songs that never got released. Like, prior to the Game Ain't the Same demo, we had about 4 or 5 songs previous to that that just never got recorded. And one of them was a song called Shine. I wrote it about my great-grandmother who passed away. It was basically lyrics about dealing with death, how to deal with death and all that. And we had a pretty good friend of our band. He would always be at shows for us. He'd always be at our rehearsal. And one night at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and keep in mind, I'm still living at my parents' house. I'm only like 19 or 20 at this point.
Yeah.
The phone rings there. I pick it up, and this person just said to me, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know the lyrics to Shine convinced me not to kill myself tonight, and I'm really grateful. Good night." Just hung up. And I was like, what? Like, it was surreal to me. I thought perhaps that I was dreaming.
You didn't know who it was? You didn't know who it was?
No, I know who it was. I'm saying his name out of respect to time.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but I saw him 2 days later at rehearsal, and I was like, "Did you really call my house that night?" And he was like, "Yeah, man, thanks again." He was like, "I was in a dark place, and I was really about to do it, and your lyrics convinced me not to." And, like, I almost started crying at that point right then and there.
Yeah.
That moment kind of made me realize the impact my lyrics could have. Because up until that point, and don't get me wrong, I think the lyrics to that song Shine that I mentioned it sucks that song never got released, because the lyrics were pretty good, but they weren't great. And so, like, it was kind of that moment that made me realize, like, man, I could possibly affect some lives with these lyrics. So that was a pretty big turning point for me, too, to realize that I should probably take them a lot more serious than I previously was. And again, it really was intentional, because I needed to make up for my lack of a singing voice with something else. So, yeah, that's a story about the lyrics. I don't know if that's good enough or not. But, you know, I could talk all day about them because I got an ego when I wrote them. But at the end of the day, I'd really like to say, you know, they have a specific meaning, but it's ultimately up to people to discern the meaning. I think with some stuff I'm pretty clear where I lean. And, you know, what's funny is I was actually thinking about it recently, like, if the songs were heard by someone today, I actually think some of the lyrics could easily be taken out of context and used by people that they were written about, but they were specifically written about to be against these people. I could actually see certain people embracing the lyrics, saying, "Yes, this is for us."
Right.
That was kind of crazy, scary to me, because that was never my intention. But I see how words get misstrewn all the time and are taken out of context. So it was just kind of interesting to me, like how because times have changed, I could see like maybe they haven't stood the test of time from that part, because I actually think people who the lyrics were against might think that they were for them, ironically enough. So yeah.
Okay.
Do you guys have any future plans for music or for the band itself?
I mean, I know you guys aren't together per se, but I mean, you mentioned something about somebody putting out your songs now again. I mean, I know you have them on SoundCloud too, right?
Yeah, all the stuff's on SoundCloud under my name, Dirty Larry 531. I put them. What's funny was I put them up years ago just to do it. 'Cause
Yeah.
I still make music here and there. I still make some hip hop beats and stuff. After Elements, I did a band called Galaxy Down where I played bass. I just always kind of tried to continue doing music in some shape. So I just had my personal SoundCloud page that anything I did, I just threw it up on. But then I'd start getting like little random comments on some of the stuff, and it'd be like so crazy. It turns out we have some fans in Sweden that I never knew about, So
Yeah.
it's just like bonkers to me. But yeah, you mentioned I'm working with the kid named Andrew. He writes for, I believe it's noecho.net, and he used to write for a website called aversionline.com. He's been like a huge supporter of Elements for like a good 10 years now. He actually reviewed the demos for us. Not just for us. He just reviewed them because he thought people should be hearing this stuff, even though at the time it was like 15 years old. So he's just been an unbelievably positive, person that I've met that really has supported the band. And
Sure.
He reached out to me probably, maybe a year or two ago. He's always hinted at the fact, this stuff needs a proper release, et cetera, et cetera.
And a lot of a lot of bands are doing reunion shows. 20-year, 25-year, 30-year reunion shows. Is that a possibility for you guys at all, or no?
I would love to say that it is, man. I really would. But I will not do it unless it's the original members.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's completely out of my hands. Some of them don't necessarily get along with each other anymore.
Okay.
I've tried to reason and plead with guys and say, just for the sake of the band, let's just do this, And especially, you said 2025 year, the 25th anniversary of our first demo being released will be 2020.
Yeah.
So, that'd also be a good time. But, it's been a discussion. People approached us like 10 years ago. Hey, what about doing a reunion? Tried to make it happen then. It didn't happen. As much as I would love to do it, I'd say it's an extreme long shot because I really would want it. To me, it has to be the original members because they're why we sounded like Elements. I can't stress enough how important the bass player and drummer John and Raj were to our sound. They had an approach to the rhythm and the low end that not a lot of people in the hardcore scene had, and I still don't think ever had. They were just super talented dudes that I was really fortunate to play with. And then again, like I said, we had Scott on guitar. We had our original guitar player, Raph. We then had Ray from, One for One, Agents for Man. We had solid musicians playing with us, too.
Yeah.
So, I could try to do some stuff where I get together some friends that could play the stuff, and I know plenty of them. But to me, it just won't be the same without the original guys. And unless, something miraculous happens, unfortunately, I probably don't see it happening. But you never know. My hope was kind of, if we could maybe get this stuff properly released, there was talks of maybe doing a split 7-inch of both the demos, a 7-inch maybe of just 4 of the songs, something like that. If something like that happened where, perhaps the word got out there, then you never know. Maybe it'll kind of make guys feel nostalgic again and start maybe thinking maybe we could do this reunion stuff. But I'd say as of now, it's not going to happen.
Do you think there's an age limit for hip hop singers? I don't know if you've seen some things online, some aging hardcore guys trying to.
Absolutely. Well, no, I actually made a funny comment on that one. I got about 15 likes. I said I swore this was a digital short.
Without mentioning names.
Yeah.
Some people know who we're talking about.
Yeah. Here's the thing with that specific situation. The style that he was doing, I 110% believe that there's an age limit for it. Because it's not authentic. It's not real. You could tell my man was just doing this to try to be part of the new music scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in that regard, I absolutely believe there's an age limit. You know, people could tell when it's not authentic, when it's not real. But if someone's doing it real and from the heart, you know, like a Vinnie Paz or whatever, or I'll even use Everlast. Like, I'm not the biggest Everlast fan out there, but I think my man's music is from the heart. You know what I mean? And he still kind of does that style. So,
you know, it's weird.
An age limit. Go ahead.
I think if you put, it's weird if you put like some heavy guitar riffs and guitars behind it. I don't know how much of an age limit there is, but if you're really strictly trying to just rap, I don't know. It like kind of doesn't come out right sometimes with some of the older aging dudes. I don't know.
No, and I fully agree with that. And you know, I think like if it were. I think the only people that could pull it off really are those who have established themselves in the past. Like I mentioned, the Everlast.
Yeah.
He can pull it off because he's Everlast and he's been doing it for 25 years. But
Yeah.
if you got some clown that's 45 years old and he's just trying to come out, it's probably not the best look. I could absolutely agree. And, you know, that's the thing. Like I mentioned, I did hip-hop music and we did Elements. To me, the two were very, like my rhymes and stuff, I did hip-hop on the side. Like, my rhymes were part of hip-hop. To me, I had my lyrics and Elements. You know what I mean? My lyrics might have sounded like rhymes, and they might have rhymed because I was used to writing rhymes, but I treated them as two very different entities completely. Mm-hmm. Like, I did not want to be that guy who was just rhyming over heavy music, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So, you know, I guess in a way I was never fully on board with that approach. To me, it's either hip-hop or it's something else, you know? So, yeah, that's a whole other debate we could get into. You know, again, I did it here and there, but when I did, I think we were trying to do it like slightly different, where it wasn't too blatant. So, you know, at the end of the day, like I said, I think we were just slightly early in time. If we had come out, you know, 2 or 3 years later,
yeah,
I think a lot more people would have known about us for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, it is what it is, though. Can't look back in life, can't regret anything, and you know, I just gotta say, it's honestly bonkers to me that 25 years later, I'm doing this podcast right now, talking about the band, and that just really blows my mind and lets me know that perhaps we were onto something. You know, like it's hard to understand when you were part of something how it might have impacted other people. To me, it was just kind of a band that we did, you know, and even though we were all very passionate about it, there was a lot of ups and downs, a lot of highs and lows. But, you know, to have someone even want to talk about it 25 years later is really humbling. It's really amazing, and I just got to say thank you for having me.
So fast, me as I fall into another void. Silence is sucking my soul as another day is destroyed. Fear, my only emotion as I journey into the night. Hoping I see the sunlight. Destroy my sanity, separate the fantasy from reality. Images of my soul, so shocked and no control. Destroy my sanity. Separate the fantasy from reality. Images of my soul, souls have to no control.
say is I'm super humbled. The last thing I will say is, about the lyrics is people might notice that I repeat the verses a lot. That's one of my biggest regrets ever, but the truth is, because I took writing the lyrics so seriously and I wanted them to mean something, it was usually really hard to come up with two verses, at least the second verse that was as good as the first verse.
Yeah.
So that's why I tend to repeat some of the stuff, because the truth is, I just really couldn't come up with anything that was good as the first verse. And with all that said, I should say, getting back to what we talked about in the very beginning, we never really intended the demos to be released to the public.
Yeah.
We were using them to kind of shop around to find a label who might want to release the stuff, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the times where there was only one verse on the song, that was because I only had one verse at the time, and the hope was that we would re-record it, and by the time I re-recorded it, we'd have a second verse.
Mm-hmm.
So, I just want to throw that out there, because one of my biggest regrets, and I actually have second verses written for most of the songs. I did it for myself over the past 10 years or so.
Yeah.
Just because I wanted them to kind of be completed from my own end.
Yeah.
Like Hesitation is the Enemy is a perfect example. That first verse, there was a lot of thought and time put into writing that first verse.
You know what's funny? Let me interrupt you for a second. I think I quoted you on some Facebook post, and you responded, "Yeah, that was me" or something. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah. I think I actually do remember that. Yeah.
I quoted your line, "You can be in paradise or prison. It's all in your mind, your inner vision," or something.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yep. Yeah, that song, especially the verse, because I tried to do the thing where everything ended in ation.
Yeah.
A fascination with degradation, but it's all a fabrication. Check the nation. That verse took me quite some time to write and get down, because it's pretty intricate, and the fact that I really stuck to the whole thing of doing ation for every rhyme, basically, that took a while to write. So it was really, I attempted to write a second verse, but I never kind of came up with anything as good. So when we laid down the vocals, I just repeated the first verse.
Yeah.
About 4 years ago, I finally wrote the second verse, and it still all ends in ation as well, amazingly. I guess I learned some new words over the past 20 years or something, but I was able to pull that off. So, that's kind of my ultimate goal. If we can re-release any of this stuff,
yeah,
I would love to potentially get back into the studio and add those second verses to a couple of the songs, and which ultimately would probably mean I have to re-record all the vocals.
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't mind at all, because I think the older I got, the more comfortable I got with my voice, and I knew, now being older, I know its limits, and I know what I could do.
Yeah.
So, that would be the ultimate, is if we could re-release it, and I could add those second verses and all that stuff. But that seems like it could be a pipe dream, but you never know. Stranger things have happened. Like I said, I found out we had a couple of fans in Sweden. Somehow these kids heard about us 25 years later, so I guess crazier things have happened.
Yeah.
Any social media or websites you like to plug?
I guess just my personal Instagram account. It's Official Artificial is my Instagram name. All one word, Official Artificial.
Okay.
I share my art on there. I am a visual artist. Always have been. So share some of my art on there. Sometimes I share something related to band or whatever. Someone posted the flyer for a Punk Street show recently that I didn't even remember, so I shared stuff like that. So, yeah, Official Artificial, my Instagram. If anyone happens to hear this that knows me back in the day, I'm on Facebook too, just Larry Cooney Jr. Hit me up. I'd love to hear from old school heads. But yeah, that's it. Just on Instagram.
Cool. All right, man. Well, I want to thank you for doing this, and like I said, I just had a respect for your music. Over many years, I had a respect for your music and your lyrics, and like I said, I still pop it in every now and then, or just pull it, stream it, whatever, on SoundCloud, and I keep using this word that it holds up, but I mean, it's just a fact. So it's you say you guys were maybe ahead of your time a little bit. I mean, maybe you were. and just thanks for doing this podcast. And, I don't know, any other closing words or thoughts?
Again, I'm really humbled and just blown away that you asked. So thank you for that. I guess my closing words are, to me, I would love to get the stuff out there just because I did think I had something to say. And at the end of the day, that was my ultimate goal with the band and being the singer, was I thought I had something to say, and I thought maybe people could think about what I had to say. And, I think at the end of the day, that's kind of the goal for any singer, that thinks they're punk rock or whatever. You just feel like you have something to say, and hopefully people will hear it. I just think I also had the added bonus of having really great musicians behind me to support me in doing that. So, I wish more people knew about us as a band, but for whatever reason, they didn't. So anything I could do to still get the word out there, even if it's so many years later, I'll take the time to do it. And again, I'm really humbled and blown away that you even give me the outlet to do so. So again, thank you.
All right, we want to thank Larry for doing this podcast for OnPointCast, onpointcast.com. And we're going to end off the interview with the last track that we're going to play. It's called Win or Lose. And I have to say that this is probably one of my favorite songs from the band. If you actually listen to the whole song, a really cool guitar solo towards the end. And I have to admit, it actually sometimes still gives me chills to listen to this song and to that riff and that's guitar solo. So again, thanks for Larry, and hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we'll see you guys soon.
Here we go. It's like this. As soon as you're born, you're in the match. Ain't no turning back what you call in the times of truth. The fake can't take the truth. Can break a heart. Take apart a soul that was weak from the start. You'll get burned. If you play with fire, with desire, think twice or pay the price. Sacrifice, what could I be? Win or lose, it's all just a game. All about numbers, not the names. It's a constant race with no finish. Those who win out, those who get diminished. Win or lose, it's all just a game. All about numbers, not the names. It's a constant race with no finish. Those who win out, those who don't diminish. Against the wall, see our best maintain. I know pain, cause I see pain. But you don't, you can't come to you. Had it all. It was always there, you were prepared for the fall. See, lesson learned are those lost. Toss and dodge, you might pay the price. Sacrifice, what could have been?